Planning a fishing trip shouldn't feel like a full-time job. With fishingbooker.com, you can find and book the perfect fishing trip within minutes. Fishingbooker.com connects you with trusted fishing captains around the world. Booking is fast, easy, and secure, with access to verified customer reviews, loyalty rewards, and around-the-clock customer support. Everything you need to book with confidence is in one place. So head to fishingbooker.com and start planning your next fishing adventure today.
Scree gear is more than apparel. It's a tribute to the relentless, the tireless, the true guardians of the wilderness. It's for those who seek not just a game, but a legacy. Not just a sport, but a way of life. In our gear, you're more than a hunter. You're a story, a tradition, a legend in the making. Scree is your journey, your triumph, your success. Join the working man revolution. Success awaits.
All right, welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass Podcast with Kevin and Chuck. Today we're going to talk about shelters. Basically, when you're out in the wild and you need some place to live, or maybe you're going to start a new life in the woods with the wolves, whatever. Kevin, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think, it's important we slip in here someplace about getting a forest bride.
Ooh, I like that.
If there are wolves around,
All right. One of the things I was thinking about, you kind of threw me with that one. One of the things I was thinking we could do is when you need a shelter in the woods, there's only a couple scenarios where this plays out in my mind. Either you decide you're going to take off to the woods and go hide or whatever, or want to go get away from the IRS or start a new world, or I don't know what you want to do. You want to breed with wolves? Whatever.
Werewolves.
Werewolves, whatever you want to do. So, all right, so you're making a choice. You can take certain supplies and tools with you. That's one option. Another scenario is you're in a car crash in the middle of nowhere. You're in a plane crash. Your ship sinks and you're stuck out, in the ocean. You wash up on an island. But most of these scenarios, you have some type of supplies with you.
Right.
Now, you either have a damaged vehicle, plane, car, boat, whatever, boat parts. You always see like Swiss Family Robinson or something. They got all these parts washing up from the shipwreck or whatever. I don't know. Happened in, what was the Tom Hanks Castaway? Or was it? Yep. All right. Now, the one I left out is getting lost in the woods. You go out for the day hike. I don't know any other scenario, but whatever. You go out for the hike and you can't make it back. Or maybe you're out camping, but if you're out camping, you have more supplies, and you're, overnight camping, trekking through the woods, you have more supplies. The only scenario where you absolutely have nothing really seems to be when you're just getting lost in the woods, which sounds kind of ridiculous to me if you're a prepper. My advice is don't get lost in the woods. Because what the hell? That doesn't add up.
That's your own fault. That's Darwinism at work.
That's Darwin, So, all right. So, basically, my point is the materials and the tools that you have with you are going to dictate what type of shelter is the right answer. And then I think there's two types of shelters. Basically, you can have where you're setting up a camp and you're planning on being somewhere for a while, or maybe you're on the move and you're traveling. So, that's really what I wanted to talk about. And like I said, it does depend. I'd like to think that as a prepper, pretty much even if you're going on a day hike in the woods, you should at a minimum have like a survival blanket. Those little tarps that you fold up and put in your pocket. I'd like to think you guys are finally by now keeping one in your glove box.
Yeah. You know, it's lightweight that's good in a backpack for a day hike is a 8x10 tarp and a little bit of parachute cord.
It goes so far as making a good shelter. But
and you're talking about less than a half a pound.
Yeah. And, we're going to cover both, and, we're going to get you through either scenario. But, I'd like to see, you're a prepper. Come on, work with me, But, all right. So, again, the type of materials, your location, where you are. Are you in the tropics? Are you, on an island? Are you in the Northeast? Is it winter? These things. Are you in the desert? These are going to affect what type of shelter you build. Now, the smaller the shelter you build, the warmer it's going to be inside. So if that's important to you, you're worried about it getting cold at night, then think about it. Think about these things, whatever. So basically, when you set out and you want to do a shelter, you want to think about wind, water, wood, and widow makers.
Okay.
So wind, what I'm talking about is you don't want to be right on a hilltop where it's beating on you all the time. Water, do you have access to water? But I want to be close enough that I can get to water and get fresh water and not be carrying buckets or going for a drink for, hiking for 20 miles. But also you need to look at, hey, I'm in the mountains, I'm out hiking, looking at nature. Are there going to be flash floods? You need to look at, what is the high level marks of the water? You'll see marks on the trees and what things are getting at. Because this actually happens in the mountains where you get stuck and, an hour of rain or just things melting and all of a sudden water shoots up. You don't want to be right on the edge.
Yeah, you don't want to wake up in 6 inches of water.
Or more. So just be aware. Pay attention to what's around you, whatever, with the water. Wood, what's your access to firewood? If you're staying there for a while, if you're setting up camp, are you going to have, a comfortable supply? Widow makers would be the last one. Look around for dead trees. Are there things that are above you? If the wind blows, are things going to turn ugly? It really does happen where the branches drop and hit people in the woods, I mean, I'm sure we've all seen branches fall, just out of nowhere when the wind blows, right?
Right. And you might want to take extra precautions on full moons for werewolves.
Werewolves, right. Back to that. All right. So let's talk about first short-term shelters. So we're on the move. We're camping. I'm going to stay somewhere for tonight, but then I want to keep looking for water or, I want to keep heading towards, where I think home is or, whatever. So I'm looking for a temporary shelter to just get me through the night, keep the elements off me, something to keep me warm and just, safe from everything outside, predators, whatever. So basically, most of the time, I see people do, simple lean-tos, where you throw some sticks together. One of the ideas that seem to work is you want to look for like a natural wall. And what I mean by that, is there some kind of big rock you can be up against? Is there a hillside you can be up against? Even a large fallen tree, a regular tree trunk you can use as kind of a big stable section. Also, sometimes fallen trees, when they actually uproot, the roots can leave a large, protective area that might be a great place. So lean-to would be good. You want to think about a little bit of ventilation in it. You want to keep some kind of opening. Conifers, evergreens basically are great for laying on top, keeping the weather out. They really do a decent job with the rain. If you do lay branches, make a lean-to, you still want to caulk it with leaves, moss, something to keep, everything out. You also want to think about, obviously it's ideal if you have a plastic tarp, the poncho, the things we talked about. You want to use that for your top shelter. Even the simple triangle tent, set up with a tarp will be great. You want to insulate the ground. So, make an effort to maybe some leaves, something like that. Get you off the ground because it does keep you cold when you're laying on that cold earth,
Yeah, it's definitely staying up off the ground is definite benefit if you're worried about being cold.
Yeah.
I know when I've been out in the woods with spending a night with nothing but a sleeping bag and a rope and tarp. If it's dry out, I just lay the tarp out underneath the sleeping bag.
Okay.
Kind of back myself up against
a
the
little
log.
more insulation and yeah.
It's good to be separated. Even when it's not raining, a lot of the times you're going to end up with dew.
Yes.
Pretty quick.
You wake up with that, and it's kind of it's not pleasant.
Being wet and cold is not a way you want to spend a night.
Fires are nice to keep predators away.
Mm-hmm.
Something to think about when you're when you're setting up a camp. I was actually watching, and I never do. The show just annoys me because they're supposed to be experts, and I don't know. It frustrates me that Naked and Afraid.
That show has too much butt crack for me.
It's disturbing. So I don't think I've watched a fair enough amount to say, because usually I get about 3-4 minutes in and I'm like, this is ridiculous, and I shut it off. It's usually just people sitting around complaining, and I'm like, So I start watching it the other day, and this guy really seems pretty sharp, and he's catching fish. He ended up he's like, I can make a simple fish trap. He took some branches and made the little triangle, where they swim in and can't swim out. You see it all the time. That's basic stuff. He would then take a big branch, set it in the water. The minnows and stuff were coming and nibbling on the leaves. And then he would pick up the branch and throw it on the shore and then walk over and pick up all the minnows because they were caught in it. And I'm like, that's pretty smart. So I was like, this guy's kind of cool. I'm watching. He's got some ideas. He started a fire like nothing, which it's not always the case. I don't know how you go on one of these shows and you don't learn how to start a fire from nature beforehand. That to me seems like a essential skill. Mm-hmm. But okay. So anyway, he builds a nice fire. They're right next to the creek bed. This girl's sleeping, and they got a little pot, and they're boiling some water to, have clean water to drink later. She falls asleep, and the pot is sitting right on the wood logs. You might imagine what happens, but the logs burn down, the pot tips over, and it burns her ass. And, you feel bad because they've obviously invested a lot of time and effort, and she was going to make it because this guy was taking care of everything.
All she had to do was stay awake.
Ended up screwing up the whole thing. But what I'm getting at is, think about things like that. What's around you? Is the creek going to rise? Right. Am I too close to the fire? Is there going to be a problem? What else can catch on fire? What hazards? That's like the widow makers that I mentioned. Look around and realize what threats might come out at the night.
Even a simple injury can cause a big problem down the road.
And that was it with this. With infection and not cleaning it. This girl tried to stay. They tried to help her out. They really did let her work with. They went and got new bandages, cleaned her up, and we're like, all right, we'll send you back. Mm-hmm. And it still got infected because, when you're out there and in the dirt, and it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Last thought I had for quick shelter would be if you have a little valley, a hole in the ground, sometimes it's cool to actually just build up with rocks around it, and you can just kind of make a real shallow little a protected area. Mm-hmm. You can use the natural walls of the earth, and that might help you out a little bit, and might even keep you a little bit warmer and keeps the wind off you.
You know what I learned the other day is there's a difference between crevice and crevasse.
Oh,
I did not know this.
See, we're all getting smarter listening to the podcast.
A crevice is a crack between rocks or earth, and a crevasse is between ice.
Oh, see, we're all learning. Now, next I wanted to talk about long-term shelters. Okay. And this is where it really does become important, the near water. How close am I going to be from my camp? Right. Where am I going to get my firewood, like we were saying? And is it going to be dry? That's the one of the important steps. And the same thing, I guess I forgot to mention in the short-term shelters, but you want to maybe dig the trench like you did in Boy Scouts around your, shelter.
Yeah. Even if it just means taking a log and scraping out a trench
a little
around.
trench and getting that water away from you just in case. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit nicer to not wake up completely soaked. Absolutely. But that's your call. So basically, all right, now we're at a long-term shelter here. The other thing I wanted to mention is if you're too close to the water, sometimes that'll distract you from the noises. Running water, you might not hear what's coming. It's nice to hear the predators off in the distance, or maybe you're hiding from somebody. Mm-hmm. Whatever it is, you want to be alert and aware. And if you have a raging river next to you, it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
Just something to think about before you set up the camp. Now, when you set up the camp, there's a bunch of choices. Again, think about how big you make the cabin, or whatever shelter you're going to be in. Is it super cold? Are you in the winter months? Is winter coming? Is it something where you're really going to have to think about that? I was reading, they said you don't want to go bigger than maybe 8 foot by 10 at a maximum. Mm-hmm. And even with that, you really want to be able to have a fire inside. So you're going to need to be able to work out some kind of chimney or exhaust for the air if you're going to go that big, or maybe you should rethink your plans.
Right.
Again, 8 by 8, 8 by 10, but then build the second one. Build a third one, build 5. You have 20 people, whatever it is. I'm not saying you're limited to that. I'm saying think about the space and make sure you're going to be able to really utilize it, and also start with realistic goals. Start with what you can get, so now we have somewhere great to sleep tonight.
Right.
We don't need to...
you don't need to build a forest mansion, an Ewok village up in the trees.
Oh, I like the Ewok village.
Yeah, but, if you're looking for a week, don't spend the whole week building it.
Right. And that's pretty much something to think about. Now, it also varies. Is there just one of you? Is there many of you? Who are you trying to protect with this shelter? Do you have tools? These things, I know I had mentioned it earlier. But, so all right, say we want to build a little cabin type structure. Stick walls if I don't have an axe or a saw. Making walls out of sticks, but what you'd want to do is do a double wall. So what I mean by that is you would take 2 sticks on either side, stack up your logs, basically small sticks in between, but then a second one, and then fill it in between with dried leaves, something like that. Mm-hmm. Then you're going to have the insulation, something flammable. You want to fight? Because, it's... So, anyway, moss, dirt, anything like that.
Yeah.
Now, as far as shingles, some kind of roof that's going to be waterproof. Again, conifers are good. They're not going to last long term. That's kind of iffy. Birch bark is awesome if you have it. In the north we do, but hit or miss.
Any kind of bark is pretty good.
Bark is good. Believe it or not, sod.
Yeah.
If you take 4 inches of grass, weeds, anything, 4-inch thick is pretty much the gonna hold on level. You can do pretty good. Believe it or not, if you have fields like tall grass, you can weave it together. And in blankets, again, you're putting a little time in, but it actually makes a nice thick waterproof lining that you can lay on the roof.
Okay.
Now, next I wanted to talk about snow shelters. So you had some ideas on that?
Yeah, I mean, living in the Northeast, I think everybody's built snow forts and things like that in this sort of area. But if you're talking about survivalism, you're talking about staying alive overnight in the cold weather.
Yes.
You definitely want to have a heat source. So if you're going to build something into a snowdrift,
yes,
that's ideal if you can find something that you can dig out a hole inside of. That's a ideal situation. You want to be careful when you're digging it too that you don't start sweating, because once you stop and you're wet, that's a recipe for disaster. That's how you end up freezing to death. So keep the sweat at a minimum.
All right, so not too much work at once.
Yeah, take it.
That's
take
always
breaks.
my philosophy, is not too much work at once. So that's going to pay off for me.
But now, if you're using heat, you don't need a bonfire. You don't need, even if you're enclosed, even something as small as a candle is going to keep you warm in a small situation.
Yeah, I think I was just reading a candle is 2,000 BTUs of heat.
Yeah.
And they were giving the different comparisons so you could see the perspective on your air conditioner. Okay. They're like, well, a candle is this, and so on. Anyway.
So you want to keep it small, though.
All right.
You want to keep it small, the shelter and the fire. So you're going to start with digging out a snowdrift with a small opening.
All right.
Something that you can close up.
Right.
You're going to want to smooth out the sides, right?
All right.
You're going to want to have separate levels. You want to do like a French drain around the outside.
Okay.
You know, for the
That's
water.
That's on the inside, right? So as the walls
around the outside of the inside.
The outside of the living area.
Right.
Right. Inside the whole fort. Okay.
And you want to do, if at all possible, which may not be possible with the size, you want to do separate levels. You want to have a lower level where the cold can go.
All right.
You know, I know you've talked about having the fire at a higher level than where you're sitting.
I did read that in the SAS manual. That's where I came up with that. All right. Here's
read
the deal.
about
all right. Go on.
Igloos and Inuits, Eskimos that would put the fire at a lower level than where you're sitting, so that the heat rises and you're in the warmer area.
Heat does rise.
So I mean,
I guess if you're making a small fire, you'd be right. And since I'm like to live large, I want a big fire in my igloo. I'm sure that'll work out well for me.
You definitely want a space for the heat and the smoke to escape.
I actually have experience sleeping in a snow shelter in -4 temperatures. I did have a good sleeping bag. And let me say, it was pretty much like if I just slept in a sleeping bag in a snowbank. And that's my experience. But back in the Boy Scouts, doing the survival badge, I was like, winter sounds like the right time, because I sure as hell can build a winter survival shelter. And that would be way better than in the summer where I got to do work and get wood. I was way off. So I don't know what it was. They weren't down for us building fires in our shelters, or we weren't at that level. Maybe they were. Maybe I was just too dumb to think of it. I don't know.
Well, honestly, I don't think that I'm at that level right
I didn't
now
want
where I
to
can
die.
build a snow fort.
I didn't want to die, and carbon monoxide, I don't know. So basically what I did, I built your typical kid snow fort, shoved my sleeping bag in there, and froze my ass off. Non-stop all night long, just chatter in my teeth and whatever. I don't think I slept for 1 second. You think when you're cold you'll just be out, but when you're freezing, I don't know. I had a time.
Well, if you're shivering
sleep.
And then you stop shivering, that's probably
That's when it ends?
A bad scenario. I mean, probably a good way to go.
All right, so basically you dig the trench around the outside, or inside, outside of your living area. You have your fire on the middle. I have my fire on the upper level. Now, we need some kind of ventilation like we were just talking about. So we're going to put a hole in the top over the fire. Sounds right. Because we're going to get heat either way. We're going to have maybe some kind of air intake, maybe at a lower level. Something small, maybe the size of a coffee can kind of hole. Maybe part of the doorway, we're going to leave open. But again, it's got to be pretty low, I think. Or I think it'll, interfere with your draft stuff. And we're toughing it out in the igloo. I like what I'm hearing.
I hope you brought 2 socks.
2 socks, and I think I'm going to be eating some fish. I'm going full on Eskimo, right? What else? That's what you got for snow shelters?
Whale blubber, man.
Whale blubber. All right.
So you want, you do want to tier it though on the inside, if it's big enough to do that. You want to have, the cold's going to go down, the heat's going to go up. You want a space for the cold to go. You want a space that you can close up with the doorway. If you're digging it out by hand is the worst way you can do, but when you're in the deep snow, you have a limited access. You know, a piece of bark is good to scrape out snow. When I've done it in the past, just in my backyard for fun, I would just build up banks around the outside of the fire pit and just sleep in the open. Have a fire pit, have about 4 feet around the outsides of it, and just go with it.
An open roof, and you ride the heat.
Open roof, and just.
That
just
sounds very wet. Is what it sounds.
Well, the heat's gonna go up. You're gonna just try and stay close enough that you get some heat and far enough away that you don't get burnt when some logs tip over and roll over on you.
And burn your ass.
Burn your ass.
But no water. No big cups of water in there. All right. Another thing I looked at was caves.
Okay.
Caves are a risky business is the answer. They're a nice idea if you find the perfect cave. A lot of people, different cultures, groups of people over the years have lived in caves and done well. Okay, good. You want to make sure there's ventilation.
Access, some sort of airflow.
Airflow in there. When you go in, you want to make sure there's no bears, bats, cats. Cats like to live in caves. One of the things to look for is like the urine smell. Make sure that, when you walk in, it's not like, ooh.
Yeah.
Because if you get that, you might want to just skip out another. And I know, when I looked at underground houses, one of the things was bears always wanting to show up and, hey,
hang out.
This looks like a cool place. And that's not something you want to be constantly fighting with. But, hey, to each his own.
Well, we're talking about forest brides.
We did. So maybe if that's your thing, bears, whatever.
I gotta tell you, you'd have to be one hell of a man, though.
You would be a hell of a man. Now, I know I mentioned sod as a way to shingle your house. You can also build an entire structure out of sod. Some people do it, but understand it's a lot of sod.
It's a lot of work to do.
It's a lot of work, and you're going to put some effort in there. So if you got a big group and a big field and you're all down, go for it. Makes for a cool house. Actually, does hold the heat, pretty good and do things like that. But, again, it's work, and I'm not sure that's the right answer. But, I guess if you're in the prairie and there's no woods and no sand, maybe that's the answer. So I wanted to cover a little more on like log cabins. Typically, you want to do like 8-inch logs. I don't know. Really, I'm staring at books with that kind of stuff all the time. It seems pretty obvious and straightforward to me.
If you've played with Lincoln Logs, you get the idea of what you want.
You get the idea. You remember Lincoln Logs at the doorways. You do the little sideways pieces.
Right.
You can figure something out. Obviously, critical. If you have nails.
You want a hatchet if you're going to try something like that.
Yeah. You got to have a hatchet as saw. But again, if you're smart enough to bring an axe into the woods, you're smart enough to figure out a basic cabin.
Right.
And I'm not going to get into it. Deal with it. All right? Sorry, I try and be nice, but it's one of those days. So natural cement. Now, this is your different climates. Different, again, depends what you have. Maybe in the island setting. I like when you have like bamboo, things like that. That's pretty cool. Makes it easy to build a structure. Natural cement, you're going to need some kind of clay-based soil, which is not too hard to come by.
No.
And then you're going to mix it with grass. So what you want to do is you want to cut grass like 6 to 12 inches long, and you need water and you need buckets. What you're going to do is you're going to mix it all together. You're going to put in the grass first, and then you're going to mix up the clay. Well, take a bucket, put in the grass, mix up clay and water till you have like a mud consistency. A little bit thicker is more the way you want to go, but you want it to be like squishy in your hands when you feel it. You're going to pour the mud on the grass, mix it up, and then use it right away, like that. And then that will actually harden pretty quickly. Couple hours. I haven't done it. That one, it's stuff I read, but something to check out. Other things you want to think about, you're going to have to go to the bathroom. You're setting up camp. You're going to need a latrine. Put it away from your water supply.
Dig a cat hole.
They say dig deep, at least 3 feet, but you want it to be above the water table. So, just think about these things. Maybe
poop can stack up quick.
Poop piles high, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, that's pretty much what I got on shelters, and like I said, we talked a lot about different types of shelters, but each one depends on the area you're in, what you have. I know I like, if I have a lot of tarp and stuff like that, in the Boy Scouts, they used to have these setups where it would be like imagine like 4 pallets together, and then they'd have like the big army tent kind of thing over it, and then you'd throw your 2 cots in there, and that worked out great. But again, what do you have? What tools? What resources? But I think we covered enough that you get the idea. You're not going to go without a roof over your head, but you really need to block the wind. You need to keep the elements off you. You got to keep your body temperature up, and you got to keep yourself safe from predators.
Yeah, I know I've done quite a few different styles of shelters with rope and tarps. Pretty easy to do. Pretty basic thing to have in your skill set and in your bug out bag, in your backpack, wherever you're going. I tie a rope between 2 trees and then the tarp in a lean-to kind of fashion, right, facing the fire. You still have open sides and you're still sleeping on the ground, but you're keeping the rain off and you're keeping some of the heat in.
Being dry is huge.
Right.
Waking up to dry clothes, and those things go a long way with your morale. We talk about fire as a big morale booster.
Yeah.
Not being wet is a big morale booster.
Mm-hmm. Keeping your feet dry, that's a big deal.
Feet dry.
And I've made the mistake
Pack
before.
The extra socks.
Yeah.
Wear
I've made the mistake before where I tried to dry my boots out on the fire and ended up burning them. Sometimes better to have wet boots than burnt boots.
Okay. Crunchy
just
boots that keep scratching the side of your leg. That's not what you're looking for?
No. A little bit of experience. Hang your socks up to dry. That's definitely a plus. Dry socks and wet boots are better than wet boots and wet socks. I have had a few experiences where I haven't been able to get a fire going because it's been a nonstop rainstorm and I've been out in the woods. If
you were underwater,
there,
right?
What's that?
You were underwater, and that's what the problem was.
If you're outside in a cold area and it's raining and you don't have a tent with you, you fucked up.
Yeah,
that's a mistake. And I was with somebody that fucked up, and they were trying to sleep in a hammock with one of those survival blankets. I was shocked when I woke up in the morning and he wasn't dead. Shocked. He said he didn't sleep all night.
Yeah, no, that's how I was in my snow fort. Mm-hmm. It's tough.
And going without sleep is another big no, because that's when you make mistakes. That's when you accidentally chop a finger off when you're trying to cut firewood.
I think that's right.
Great thing for that though is when you're out in the wet, birch bark. Birch bark burns great, even when it is wet. It's got some sort of oil in it that keeps it going.
I thought you were going to do something with the birch bark when you cut your finger off. No. But no, that didn't. You don't have a trick for that?
No, quick clot.
Quick clot, huh? Or tie a string around it and hope for the best?
Yeah.
I had one. How about this? Listen to this as far as big injuries, and maybe I'm off task, but, hey, whatever. Mm-hmm. Had a friend of mine, customer or something, he works with wood tools.
Okay.
Working with a chisel out in his shed, whatever. Stabs his artery right in his wrist. Calls the ambulance and is like, there's no way I'm not going to make it if an ambulance, whatever. So he's holding it, gets in his car, goes to the ambulance or goes to the hospital. They're like, thank God you didn't wait for an ambulance. You'd be dead. Mm-hmm. They sew it all up. They close off the artery. So he's like, what do we have to do? We have to do some kind of reconstructive surgery and you put it back? And they're like, no, it'll just find another path to go.
Really?
Blew my freaking mind. He was like, I didn't know what. They said that your other veins and stuff, the blood will just reroute and go to a different way.
Really?
And they just tie off the one. And I was so fascinated by this, I thought you guys all needed to know it, you know?
No, it's cool. It's an internal bleeding.
They're
That's
like,
where my
don't even
blood's
worry.
supposed to
Well,
be.
they tied it up.
Right.
They tied the artery and closed it. But he was like, yeah, but is it blood not going to get to my hand now? And they're like, no, don't worry about it.
Really?
We just leave that.
It's just an artery. You don't need that.
Whatever. And he's like, it's one of the main. He's showing me, you know. He's like, oh, look. And I'm like, yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. So maybe you guys want to check us out at Patreon.
Yeah.
Support the home team.
We've got plenty of ways to contact us if you want to get a hold of us.
All right. What do you got?
We've got our email at preppingbadtass@gmail.com.
Preppingbadass. You can check us out on Facebook. We'll put a link in the show notes.
If you're having a hard time accessing us, a few of our shows are up on YouTube.
All right.
We're on iTunes.
We have our own YouTube channel at
Do we?
Prepping Badass. Yes. And, we're up on the iTunes, obviously. Hopefully that's where you found us. And maybe you want to leave a review on the iTunes. I like the positive feedback.
Yeah, reviews are great. You know,
they also help other people find us, and that just makes the
negative
bigger.
reviews make the show better. If you're, if your constructive criticism is appreciated.
Now, I'm not saying just go be negative, but here's what you do. Give us 5 stars and then say any bad thing you want, and I'll call it good. We'll call it a wash. That said, I think he said everything.
That's everything.
The forum, badassarmy.com. We're on Twitter at preppingbadass. And otherwise, have a good
now,
week.
Let us know if you guys want to see some sort of a video feed. If that's something you're interested in. It's not something I'm interested in because I'm very unattractive.
He is unattractive, folks.
I do have an exceptional beard, though.
He does have an exceptional beard.
I didn't tell you this. My birthday was recently, and I got some sort of a beard oil.
I have beard oil.
Well, I don't know anything
about it.
Does it
smell like dirt? Because mine smells like dirt.
It smells like some sort of like sage and wood smoke and
nice.
It's
rustic.
Yeah, rustic, and my beard is luxurious lately.
Luxurious. Yeah. All right. I know it did help with the dry brittleness thing going on with whatever I got.
Yeah,
going.
I was scratching girls up, and now.
All right, now you're smooth and
now
soft
smooth
like
silky.
A baby's ass, huh?
Silky smooth.
All right. With that said, stay safe, and we will talk to you guys next week.
Planning a fishing trip shouldn't feel like a full-time job. With fishingbooker.com, you can find and book the perfect fishing trip within minutes. Fishingbooker.com connects you with trusted fishing captains around the world. Booking is fast, easy, and secure, with access to verified customer reviews, loyalty rewards, and around-the-clock customer support. Everything you need to book with confidence is in one place. So head to fishingbooker.com and start planning your next fishing adventure today.